Hi, my name is Kat Knowles, and today we will be utilizing the state crime dataset in order to uncover the relationship between rape and murder in Virginia. For starters, we are going to be looking at the relationship between two violent crimes, rape and murder, that occur in Virginia in order to hopefully better inform how we approach things like crime prevention. In order to better understand how to approach this data set, we must first create what is called an abstraction. An abstraction is the simplification of an entire dataset into something that is more easily understood by the person trying to interpret the data. For our purposes, we will be creating what is called a data map as our form of abstraction. More specifically, the real-world entity that this project is representing is the data set of state crimes, and this data set includes the state, year, and population rates, and these are string, integer, and integer keys. It also includes the rates for burglary, larceny, and motor, which are float, and the rates for assault, murder, rape, and robbery, which are also float. And these are relevant to my project's question because this information is what allows us to study different aspects of crime rates. So for structure, we have our data map that we discussed on the abstraction slide. On this slide, you will see the visual representation of the abstraction that I mentioned in the very beginning of the presentation. The two subsets of this data that I will be utilizing that are murder and rape are both string values that fall under the key of violent, which falls under the data key. For limitations, along with any data set that is used, we have to account for things such as human error, and we refer to these things as limitations. For instance, with this data set, the limitations include many different things. With this data set, we accounted for limitations such as not all of the data being recorded, having a data set that may be too complex to understand in its entirety, and having categories of organization that are too broad and vague. So for my question, I wanted to know what the relationship was between murder and rape in Virginia. This question is important because by understanding whether or not there is a relationship between these two crimes, we will be able to better inform ourselves in regards to prevention of these crimes in the future. In order to answer this question, I created a visualization. Here we see that the dots representing these crimes seem to be all over the place and generally just not uniform. So from this, we can see that there is no true relationship between rape and murder in Virginia. My answer to the question includes the following. As I said before, from the visualization, we can deduce that there isn't really much of a relationship between the number of rapes and the number of murders in Virginia. By making a scatter plot of both the number of rapes in Virginia and the number of murders in Virginia, we are able to tell if there is any type of relationship between these two crimes. Thankfully, if we go back and look at the results of this data manipulation, we are able to tell that there is not really a large relationship between the two crimes. An implication of this result, however, is that there is still no clear correlation between murder and rape, which means that we do not really have a cause as to why murders are being committed in Virginia. Another implication of this just means that we will have to look deeper and do more research in order to find the cause and, hopefully, put an end to the crime. The other important aspect to look at when discussing a question such as this is the social impacts. And when we're talking about the social impacts of a certain problem, we have to first acknowledge who the stakeholders are. In regards to this question, the possible stakeholders include citizens living in Virginia, police officers, and federal crime analysts. Anytime we are analyzing the social impacts of a question and its data set, we must also look at the implications that the research will have on the stakeholders. The citizens living in Virginia would be implicated because they are the ones being murdered, raped, etc. The police in Virginia would be implicated by this information because it could shape how they do their job and or how they pursue criminals. This information would implicate people on the state level as well, because if they see a trend between states, they may be able to notice a national pattern. Continuing on, there are also many conflicts that can occur between the stakeholders in regards to this data. In this data set, however, I do not believe that there would be a lot of conflict between these stakeholders because this information is not something that would impact the stakeholders negatively. Despite this, the only conflict between stakeholders that I could foresee would be between the federal analysts and the state police officers. The source of conflict here would most likely come from the fact that the federal officers would not want to release the information until more research has been done in order to make sure that it's more accurate. And this could cause conflict because without this information, police officers would not know exactly how to execute their jobs. In conclusion, thank you for watching and listening to this presentation, and I hope you learned something from the information provided.